Hey, thanks for tuning in today. I'm glad you're with us. James chapter 1, verse 2 says the following. James says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider those troubles an opportunity for great joy." Now, I don't know about you, but have you ever found yourself struggling with a bad attitude? You know, seasons in your life where nothing seems to go right, and it's easy to just allow your attitude to begin ruining your life. I have. I totally understand that when you're in one of those seasons, the last thing that you're considering is that your troubles would be an opportunity for joy. In fact, when I read that verse, I think to myself, that's just dumb. That seems impossible. And it is if you don't understand the context of this verse, and if you don't read the latter part of the verse. James writes today's key verse during a time where the Christians had allowed the frustrations and the annoyances and the persecutions and the hardships of life to literally steal their optimism and joy. And who could blame them? In their defense, these believers were dealing with a lot of serious and justifiable reasons to have a bad attitude. I mean, if anybody deserved to have a bad attitude, it was them. They were facing incredible persecution and trials and suffering at the hands of the Roman Empire. And it was for them a very confusing time that was filled with numerous emotions as they faced constant opposition, all while they were trying to just love and live for Jesus. So in the natural, they probably had every right to have a bad attitude. And yet, James reminds them of something, that no matter what is happening in their lives, they could experience inner joy. You say, how? Well, James says this, by taking control of their thinking and changing their attitude. Something that was within their power to do. You see, the circumstances that they were living in the Roman Empire, the persecutions, the hardships, the struggle, the death, that was all out of their control. But their attitude was the one thing that they could control. So if instead of focusing on all the things that were going wrong, instead of focusing on all the sufferings and the hardships, James encourages them to focus on Jesus and to focus on their faith. So often, I allow the things that are going on in my life to dictate my attitude. If I'm honest with you, and you can ask my wife, I can't tell you over the years how many days off, how many family outings, and even at times vacations I've allowed to get ruined because I've allowed my attitude to be affected by outside circumstances that were usually going on in the church, to be quite frank. Paul doesn't downplay to the people that James doesn't downplay to the people that he's writing to all the bad that is happening to them. He doesn't tell them to ignore it. He doesn't deny that it's happening, but instead he encourages them to shift their focus to the one that can do something about their problems, Jesus. So here's what happens. When we focus our hearts on Jesus instead of our problems, something begins to happen. And that something is that we gain a new perspective and our attitude begins to shift. You see, the reality is this, our attitude is simply an outward display of what's happening in our heart. So if we're focused on Jesus in our heart instead of our problem, it's possible, as James said, to experience joy even in the midst of trouble, which then changes our attitude or our outlook. Got problems? Got a bad attitude? Shift your focus, James says. Start focusing on Jesus. Start focusing on His ability. And your attitude will begin to shift and it will no longer rule your life negatively. Well, hey, thanks for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you this Sunday in church. God bless.